I think pensions are bullshit, and this is why. I've just got my statement from Aviva. I've been paying into this plan since 2015, so not long. I'm a little bit of a late bloomer with regards to pensions, but look at this. I've got 25 grand in there at the moment. It's going to equate to £140,000 by the time I retire in 2047, which sounds great in theory, but actually it only equates to £298 a month. Like, what the actual I've worked my arse off to get to this point, and I'm 40 now. If I carry on this trajectory, I'm going to get to retirement age and I'm going to have £300 a month. Obviously, it will be relative inflation. It will go up, but generally, that's what it's going to equate to. It's going to be worth £300 a month. How am I supposed to survive on that? And why is nobody talking about this?
I think it's a really powerful video because it demonstrates the futility of the pension system completely. So you've got this system where, you put your money in good faith. You work for a company, you put your money in. And I saw some research that was done, and it said the average Brit, the average person in the UK, by the time they retire, has got a pension pot of roughly £100,000. The Panorama research that I saw said, in order that you would have that pension pot of £100,000, how much do you think the professional fees are? Do you know? Well, it shocked me when I read it was £120,000. In other words, during the years that you're saving up, your advisors take away more money than you end up with in your pot. So your effective cost is like 50%, which is insane. Now, I know pensions are good in that you get tax relief and whatever. My view is that the system, the insurance companies, the pension companies, even the government, takes massive advantage of that. So what can you do about it is probably the most important question. Before we go on to that, I just want to hammer in the last nail into the coffin, metaphorically speaking, of the pension system, and it's this. Look at this report here from the Times, from the Financial Times, in fact, and it talks about the difficulties that normal people experience within the pension system. And it talks about the paltry returns, the few £100 a month that the average person's going to get when they retire. What use is that? Especially when you put it in the context of this. Here's another article from the BBC which says that the UK government has never been so indebted. And the debt servicing costs for the UK government were 120 odd billion last year, and they're going up 121 billion last year, and they're going up by another 23 billion. Now those numbers are telephone numbers, but if I divide that total debt of 130 odd billion by the number of people that are working in the UK, the interest on the debt is costing £5,000 per person per year. Think about that. So what did I do? Well, I did what you can do. I said to my previous employers, so like the Ford Motor Company, Cadbury Schweppes, people like this, I said, look, if I add together all the pensions that you three, in my case, were going to give me by the time I'm 60, it came to £8,000. This was 20 years ago when I was 40. And if you want to understand, it's like, well, I want to give up my £8,000 because I want a lump sum now. How much are you going to get? That's called a transfer value. So get that written down, transfer value. Now my transfer value 20 years ago was £396,000. I can't spend it, it's got to go into a private pension. One of my students, a guy called Basil, he recently wrote off, and he used to work for local government, and he thought, I'm not going to get much. He's got nearly £900,000 as a transfer value. Now imagine what you could do, in my case 20 years ago, with 400k, or what Basil can do now with 900k. It's enormous. My most recent commercial, you can invest in commercial property with your pension. My most recent deal is this. Buy a site for £650,000, £660,000. Spend some money on it. Okay, 800,000. So that's 1.4 million. 6 months from now, it's going to be worth £7 million. That's not a mistake. I haven't dropped, no, 7 million. And you might be thinking, well, Paul, I don't have £1.5 million. Well, you might, transfer value? Go and find out. But let's say you want to do something more modest. Okay, the cheapest property that I've ever bought in my pension was £30,000. I did that a few years ago. I've just signed a new 5-year tenancy on it this morning, actually. That 5-year tenancy at £5,500 per year might not sound a lot, but £5,500 a year, the way commercial properties are valued, that property is now worth more than £100,000. So think about that. Do you want to take control, or do you just essentially want to give all your pension money to some advisor somewhere? Now clearly this isn't pensions advice, I'm not giving you advice, I'm just sharing with you my story and I'm giving you some guidance that there is a different way. And if you want to learn more about the ins and outs of private pensions, in my case a SSAS, small self-administered scheme, then Touchstone Education talks about that all the time. And if you want to give yourself a good foundational knowledge of, well, I don't want to give 50% of my entire pension contributions to some guy I've never met, get yourself along to Wealth Through Property. Come and spend 2 days with us and make sure you know how you can cash in your existing private pensions, your company pensions, whatever they are, move them into your own pension scheme that you control. Not the government, not some advisor. Most people that I know, when they retire, they don't have any money. I'm going to end it here. I could go on for days. If you want to hear me go on about it for days, come along to Wealth Through Property. There'll be a link below. You've been wonderful. I've been Paul. See you next time.